Too quickly, a choice was made. Plans were slashed without warning. Contracts were put off. Magnolia's management changed all of a sudden. Joanna stopped doing anything with the media. Chip canceled all talks with the press. No one spoke up. People in the business knew something big had happened because of what had happened. A discussion is cut off. It's broken, an unspoken deal. And people who thought they knew the couple start to see a different, tense, out of control and unexpected side of them. Things began to go in a different direction after that, from the path they had been on for 20 years. You can move it around the corner and maybe add a pool someday. You could take care of all of her raised beds. Chip could be locked up. The goalies chose the tire swing house in the end, which, wait a minute, I need to kiss this. Fixer Upper stopped its run for good in March 2018. The show that made Chip and Joanna Gaines famous all over the country as a couple who fixed up houses. Not going to break it. 88% of the time I will. But there's a 12% chance I'll take off those sunglasses and put on those glasses. Fans no longer saw networking meetings, media events or joint projects after the show's last season. Plans were called off. And news conferences about the Magnolia brand were called off without any reason. Joanna stopped going to the Waco neighborhood events that happened every year, even though she had been going for years. We are at Magnolia Farms in Waco, Texas, which is a very common place to visit. We're really excited about it. Chip didn't show up to 3 events in a row that he usually went to with his family. For weeks, both of their public social media pages looked the same. There are no changes or replies. For almost 2 months, Joanna quit sharing her own posts. There were no longer the usual posts of family pictures around Easter and Thanksgiving that happened every year. A lot less material and interactions were posted on the Magnolia brand's official Instagram account, and there was no mention of any activities that the couple was a part of. At the same time, a number of events advertised products were called off on the day of the events, with changes to internal plans given as the only reason. At the same time, some of Magnolia's retail partners said their contracts were being held up because the top team asked them to. The media stopped pushing stories about Joanna. Chip kept working on some home improvements, but he didn't say anything about long-term goals. The program planner told everyone in the company at an event that Joanna would not be directly responsible for the direction until further notice. As the last scenes of Fixer Upper were being filmed, the production team saw some changes in how the two worked together. Some shooting schedules were cut short, and the two of them no longer worked on the whole project together during shoots. At one point, Joanna would only show up for as long as it took her to finish her story. After the scene was over, leave the scene, started to do more work behind the scenes. The system that had been just right for both of them was changed for no reason. At the same time, a number of important talks were held at Magnolia's headquarters in Waco to stop growth and rethink how the brand works. According to a member of the product team, Joanna was only directly involved with one of the few strategic choices that were made during this time. Long-term workers saw a clear change in who does what in the company, took on more duty. Joanne sat down in the back. Magnolia announced in early May that it would not be attending a big interior design show in Austin. The company had been going to this show for 4 years in a row. The reason given was that its working schedule was being changed. Partners in the event said that Joanna had signed up to go but did not show up. Chip did not speak for her either, like he had done in the past. Joanna used to be in charge of all of Magnolia's furniture, home goods, cookbooks, and blog posts. But around the middle of 2018, the blog switched to having material planned by a team. The last post that was signed, Joanna showed up in April. Not until almost a year later did her signature show up on any of her public work. In late 2016, when Fixer Upper was at its most popular, a story on BuzzFeed caused a chain reaction that no one saw coming. The story was mostly about the Antioch Community Church, which Chip and Joanna Gaines went to often. Not those two people, but Pastor Jimmy Seibert was the real victim of the attack, who spoke out against same-sex marriage and in favor of gender conversion therapy on behalf of the church. The Gaines family was seen as a good example of the Christian community in the area, which is worth mentioning. People were quickly interested in them because they didn't answer or say anything. Social media had a strong response. There were calls from LGBT rights groups to not watch the show. People looked through old episodes of Fixer Upper to see if Chip or Joanna said anything personal, but there was no clear answer. Both of them kept completely quiet. There will be no blog posts, interviews, or status updates. The debate grew because of this lack of noise. After a week, several big entertainment magazines ran editorials that talked about the role of the church and the traditional Christian brand that Chip and Joanna represented from Texas. The public's reaction was to their lack of bias in the middle of a heated moral discussion. People began to wonder if their decision to stay neutral was a smart move or just a way to fit in. Magnolia has also been getting more tense. A group of workers suggested that the messages be unified through an internal discussion, but the idea was turned down. Partner brands have asked for guarantees that none of their goods will be linked to images that are offensive to people of color. There has been no official word on why at least 2 TV projects have been put on hold. It didn't really last long, but the reaction did leave a deep scar on their otherwise perfect image. People said Joanna wasn't doing her job as a female star in the entertainment business today. Chip was thought to be cautious and vague. Even though the boycotts didn't last long, they were followed up with media training on how to handle a brand problem at internal workshops. For months, the effects were felt. The national media partner that wanted to bring Fixer Upper back asked for more information about the brand's values before going forward with any plans. They wouldn't say anything, but they stopped doing advertising things. At this point, Joanna stopped being involved in marketing in a big way, giving the teams in charge a lot of operational responsibility. From the beginning, it was a big change. She came up with ideas and was the face of the Magnolia brand. At this point, Chip and Joanna move into a new phase where the waves of criticism can hit them. They have to be very careful about what they say, how they look, and the little things they do. Not as easy as it used to be when all they did was build a house, film a show, and post pictures of their kids. Fixer Upper became a national hit, and Chip and Joanna Gaines were loved for both their style of home renovation and the real-life story of how they built an empire from nothing. Yet there was a complicated machine behind the show that was driven by conflicts, pressures, and trade-offs that the public didn't see. Magnolia began as a small store, but after the TV show aired, it grew faster than anyone thought possible. In just 4 years, they grew into a huge company with businesses in real estate, interior design, restaurants, hotels, publishing, lifestyle brands, and even their own TV network, Magnolia Network. At that size, there can't be any room for error in the management. Chip is the creative, strategic, and public face of the brand. Joanna is in charge of managing content, reviewing images, designing products, and making sure the quality of the whole thing. In this way of doing things, their differences as people became more and more clear. Joanna followed a plan to the letter, paying close attention to every line of text, improvised, and ideas were often changed right before they were put into action. The Magnolia team had to redo the whole design a lot of times because Chip would change his mind or make decisions without talking to the production team first. Someone named Joanna was known for being quiet in groups. She had to put a job on hold once because the logo was printed in the wrong color. The disagreement wasn't caused by fights, but by the two people's different ways of doing things becoming more noticeable. Around 2019, when Magnolia Network started talking to Discovery about starting its own network, things really got tough for the two. The partnership terms, content duties, staff size, and expected revenue were too much for many internal areas to handle. A person in the production said that at least 3 projects had to be put on hold because of disagreements over who had the power to make decisions. One had to do with picking a new host for Joanna, which she didn't agree with but which Chip backed to raise brand awareness. At the same time, Chip got in trouble with the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA) for not following the rules for getting rid of lead paint. Magnolia was fined $40,000 during a home makeover. The event didn't cost a lot of money, but it did hurt the company's reputation a lot. Joanna had to work with the legal department, deal with the media problem, and show partners how things work inside the company. At the same time, Chip didn't show up in public for 2 months. Chip's role at Magnolia has become less clear at the top level since 2020. He is still working on sets and in ads, but Joanna and the senior management team have been in charge of making most of the big choices. This shift in power hasn't been made public, but it's clear from the way the brand talks to people. Less random and more organized. From the outside, it looks like a plan to become more professional. For people close to them, it's the result of years of getting used to each other. The couple didn't break up at the time, but now that we look back, it's clear that if there was ever a time when Joanna thought about quitting the Magnolia project for good, it was at this point. After Magnolia Network officially started in the middle of 2021, there was a quiet turning point, and Joanna Gaines's media appearances have dropped dramatically. They aren't the news every day anymore, but people who watch the couple closely might notice something important, a change in how they organize their personal lives. The most important parts were the quiet and the slow, controlled return. Late in 2022, Joanna started to show up on social media again, but she stopped posting photos of events and ads for goods. Instead, she shared everyday things like making coffee in the morning and growing vegetables with her daughter. Taking the crew to school, the posts became less serious and more about family and free time. I missed the most important status at that time so much right in my own home. A short line that makes it clear that the person wants to back down. Chip has also changed some things. He's spending more time in Waco and has put on hold all of his plans to buy more property outside of Texas. A number of investments have been taken back. It was partly for business reasons and partly for personal ones. Chip has often said that slowing down is more important than the fast growth plan of the past few years in rare interviews. In the history of magnolia trees, this is the first time that both have slowed down at the same time. They announced a new TV show called Retro Farmhouse in early 2023. This was the clearest sign of a change in an old home that has been fixed up. The show doesn't focus on technical or creative aspects like other formats did. It's mostly about how they enjoy a simple life together, going about their daily lives together, and even talking about marriage and how it changes over time. The show is different from anything Magnolia has done before because it is small and slow. In November 2023, a special episode showed Chip and Joanna going to the gym together for the first time in almost 20 years of marriage. This was the first time they had talked about working out together in public. Had to join something that didn't work. What Joanna said on the show wasn't a public statement. It was a choice they made to remember themselves that commitment doesn't come from having a busy schedule, but from choosing to keep the relationship alive in the little things. Joanna told Entertainment Now in January 2025 that the couple's marriage had changed and that the goal was no longer to build more, but to keep what was important. Magnolia's whole business was restructured to be more simple. The number of products was cut down, and the company focused on doing more community work and family-friendly events. As a way to boost morale within the company, the whole senior staff camped out in a suburb of Waco. We believed that everything would go well if we did it well. In a personal video conversation, Chip said that, but marriage is more than that. It took them 3 years of hard work to learn how to live together again as two people, not as business partners. This short line sums up the whole process. One event doesn't make change happen. It's the result of hundreds of days of silence, tense meetings, and frustrated times that were not shared. At some point, they both realized that the only thing that stands between them is a quiet choice to stay. What is left of their 20 years together? Chip and Joanna Gaines have made something that not many famous couples do. They have clear values that show in everything they do. Mantras. Not. They made more than a house, a company, or a TV show. Like they made a way of life where sticking with it, even when things get hard, is more important than fame. The show Fixer Upper is just the start. Magnolia was created through hard work and a strong desire to be a business. But the most important thing isn't how many fans you have, how much money you make, or your plans to grow. What makes them unique is how they hold each other together, not because of their jobs, but because of the concept they set out to live by. Things can change at any time, but this bond has to last. Many groups of experts wanted to make Chip and Joanna into global brand icons when Magnolia was at its peak. Plans were in place to open restaurants in big towns, franchises, and other countries. Even though some of them had great ideas, they were put on hold because the two didn't want to make their lives into a long-term campaign. They didn't let things get out of hand just to get attention. One of the biggest publishers in the country once offered to print Joanna's autobiography, but she said no. Even though she had a contract, her reason was easy to understand. I haven't had enough time to tell anything interesting soon, so she could produce her own books through Magnolia Books. She didn't write a memoir. Instead, she talked about food, family, design, and the principles that have helped her stay balanced. Not a manifesto, just knowledge and a humble attitude. Chip has also been asked to talk at a number of business events across the country. He only takes invitations where he can share his real story, not in a lecture style. In most of his talks, he repeats the same thing. Everything we do starts in the kitchen, not with a plan. There is a value line that runs through each sentence and choice. Not too hard to understand, but family comes first. Soon, truth over appearance, more people than numbers. Magnolia is no longer interested in growth or development. It has quietly changed into a place for making a long-lasting difference in the community. It puts most of the money it makes from its business activities directly into projects that meet local needs. For example, it supports education in districts that don't have enough money, pays for job development centers, and creates programs that teach young people useful life skills. These investments are not meant to make news or help with public relations. They are planned. Long-term attempts are meant to make changes that last at the local level. Chip and Joanna Gaines don't put themselves in the middle of every project. They are no longer in the news, and don't have to put their names or faces on every project. Magnolia does. Their participation is now planned and measured. They show up when they can really help, and they let the trusted team they helped build do the job following the same principles that made Magnolia what it is from the start. Their quiet leadership is part of their heritage. It's not about how much power they have, but about how well they've passed it on. Their most important impact isn't measured by sales or profits. The quiet change they've caused in the way millions of people think about marriage, desire, and the line between personal and shared identity is where it lives.
They've shown that love doesn't need to be perfect, that privacy and public life can coexist, and that being close all the time isn't the only way to be connected. They've built more than just houses, brands, and networks. It shows that real strength comes from choosing each other over and over again, without any show or pressure, just with purpose, consistency, and respect. There are cycles in careers. The public's attention does too. It's not always easy to get noticed. Trends change, and even the most famous chapters stop at some point. But when a relationship lasts through it all, pressure, coming up with new roles and years of changing those roles, there's something more than image or importance left. It leaves behind a quiet memory, not the kind that gets framed or made the news, but the kind that lasts through daily choices, being there and respecting each other. That's what Chip and Joanna Gaines do every day, not by keeping up a perfect image, but by keeping a promise that didn't have to be loud to last. The story of Chip and Joanna Gaines shows that big promises aren't always what make a relationship strong. Displays of love in public, or displays in public, that's how two people learn to live with each other. Keep quiet sometimes, accept their differences, and pick to be by each other no matter what. They don't try to be perfect to please other people, and they don't have to explain everything to be believed. They go at their own pace, which is slower and more real. They don't need big shows to show what they believe in. Instead, the small everyday things they do show them what's important. It's a choice that is meant to be subtle and strong enough to last for a long time. If this journey makes you think, or if you've seen signs like this around you, please leave a message below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep following along with our next stories. Every detail is worth hearing.